All right, behind me here we have the Amflow with the Avinox drive unit. This is one of the most talked about drive units on the market, and this motor has just received some key updates. Today we're gonna get it out on the trail, go over some of those features, and we'll bring Drew in later. He can talk about all the details. I'm just here to have a good time. One of the first things I wanted to go over was the real-time tune option. So what this is essentially within each power mode, you are now able to customize buttons on your handlebars, whether that be your power modes or this guy here, to adjust in real time MicroTunes. And basically what this allows you to do is be in auto, and say you're pedaling with someone that is on an SL or not as powerful as a bike, you can detune selectively within each mode. So one of the things I've noticed here, so we are in full, I got all the juice. I'm gonna get on the power, pulling about 60 Newton meters and 700 watts. Slow back down. Got my customizable button here for less power on the double square, more power on the circle there. I don't know what those logos are actually called. And then I also have hold and presses customized to other options. One is for the DJI Action Cam I'm using, but that's besides the point. Okay, we are fully detuned now, and we're only able to pull about 40 watts, so it's about a 20 Newton meter deduction in trail mode for that MicroTune. What that's gonna do is allow you to have a bit more traction on steeper climbs where you don't want the power to come on as hard, and then also preserve your battery a little bit. And that will also allow you to ride with other power ranged e-bikes a little bit easier than just selecting your main modes here. One of the most fun things about this Avinox system is that 1,000 watts of peak power. So now in trail mode, you can tune it all the way up to 1,000 watts of peak power. All right, so as we're getting into a bit steeper climb here, one of the other features that I think is gonna really impact your rides is the smooth shift with chain protection. So one, chain protection, let's touch on that first. So let's say I'm in a hard gear here, I'm in turbo, I hammer down the power and want to shift. Man, it's very noticeable. What it basically is doing is detuning the motor for you, so it finds that more natural sweet spot to get into gear. So I'm gonna do it again. Yeah, so essentially what I'm feeling is under full power in turbo, 1,000 watts of peak power, 105 Newton meters of torque, the system is sensing when that gear is going into its next position and just detunes the motor just a little bit to just help extend the life of your chain and all your components, as well as not make you sound like a Neanderthal out on the trail. If you're anything like me and you shift whenever it suits you, this is a really cool feature. And on that, we have smooth shift. So basically, smooth shift, if you're coasting and want to shift gears, let's see if I can look down at the derailleur and not crash. So we're just coasting and it just shifts right into gear for you. So that is similar to what Shimano's doing with auto shift, in sense of powering up the motor to spin into a new gear. I find this so incredibly useful, especially on descents. Less so on climbs because I can time my pedals a bit more intuitively, but on descents, if you come nuking down something steep and then go right into a climb, as you're looking ahead on the trail and you see that climb coming, just declick into gears. And yeah, oh, here we go. Here's a good steep one. So smooth shift in, 1,000 watts of peak power, and barely any chain shift noise. So yeah, sorry, that was just a good example there. But yeah, I'd say the smooth shift is one of my personal favorite features of this update. I love the ability to not have to shift and pedal. Like, it's just, to me, it just makes all the sense in the world with how much technology is in these bikes. So as I'm here waiting for Shaw on trailside, we got a steep section of trail here. One of the other new features is quick start. So this basically allows you to tune in how much and how strong the power comes on when starting from a standstill. So I have it like fully give me all the beans, which I love that feeling. In some scenarios where you might be on a shaly climb where you need a little bit less torque right up front and you want the power to kind of roll on, this allows you to tune all from the head unit here how hard you want that power to come on. And looks like Sean's finally catching up on his measly peasant bike. And bap. Oh my goodness, yeah. Full power sure makes for some fun moments on the climb. Goodness gracious. This bike is just hilarious. Foot out on uphill corners. Yep, that's wow, we are in the hardest gear and still, holy smokes. All right, I promise we are almost to the top and you will stop having to listen to me talk about climbing, and we're gonna start descending soon. But one of the final updates I wanted to mention was that boost mode, whew, now gives you a total of 60 seconds of tunable time. All right, so we're at the top of a trail. We're gonna drop in and I'm still in my climb gear. And this is another really cool example of where the smooth shift really comes into play. Yeah, a couple more. Yeah, that'll do. What do you think about that, Sean?
So smooth.
That's, I love that. No more dropping in first gear and hoping you can make it into the right gear. Time for the fun part. Going down on scary off-cambers. Oh boy. So, additional to all the fun power updates, you get some pretty cool oh my god, this is sick! So loose. You get some pretty cool UI updates as well. A lot more customizable parameters on that touchscreen. Oh my gosh, yo! To give you a little bit more customization in how you want the system to display information. So within that display, options can all be, oh, tree jump, can all be done from the bike. You don't have to have the app. So as we're headed home, say this was the end of fall and you weren't gonna ride the bike for a while, has integrated into the app a way to set your battery charge percentage. So say you're gonna store, oh my gosh, say you're gonna store the bike for quite a while and you didn't want to ride it or store it fully charged, you can set it between 70 and 95% of state of charge, which is ultimately going to extend the life of your battery. Oh my gosh, I forgot how fun this bike is. All right, so we are back here next morning. I'm getting ready to head back home. So Drew is kind enough to loan me his yard to do this little video, and we're just gonna kind of go through some more first impressions on the updates. Drew, when you had your first ride on this, what was the most impactful change that you can recall?
Gosh, I mean, there were so many, really. I mean, because it was a pretty wide scoping update. Obviously, I would say having that full power in more modes is a really hard one to say that you don't notice, right? Like, and honestly, I didn't have that power mode usable in every setting, just because I didn't want that much power. I wanted to focus on, you know, battery range and also usable power. Sure. But we can kind of, you know, tuning is kind of at your own preference sort of a thing. But moving away from that, a feature that like was neat, there may be more to it coming soon, was that like on the fly tuning. I honestly didn't get to do a ton of experimenting with that, sadly, before fate had other plans for me, but I know that was something you played with quite a bit yesterday. And then other than that, really, I mean, I think just really getting into that app, like this update forced me more than others to really get in there and play with the power, tuning of the power, how fast it's ramping up. And that was something that I, in reality, liked and valued more than just having more power, was being able to control and have usable power.
For sure, and that was one of the things yesterday. I got to the top so quick, I didn't have time to talk about going into the app and actually changing the curves and really adjusting it to your style of riding. You know, if maybe you're riding a bunch of steep stuff and you're constantly stopping and waiting and you need to do a lot of really steep starts, you can detune that initial power curve so you don't get wheel lift and it just comes on a lot smoother. I think for me, one of my favorite things is the smooth shift and the chain saver. When a lot of questions we get about, oh, how long do the chains last? Well, an update like this, where it's just very, very slightly depowering as you're shifting in, is going to extend that life. When it comes to smooth shift with the transmission, being able to coast and shift, like, I think that's added more user-friendly experience for my type of riding. Where I ride, we have lots of steep chutes into like a punchy uphill that as you're coming down, you can look up and see that uphill and click a few gears. So then you're also not just grinding, you know, into that steep hill, which the decreased power does help that, but you can further prevent that issue from happening.
Funnily enough, one of our other guys who's been putting in, I don't even know, he's put in hundreds.
300 miles, he said.
Yeah, in like 2 weeks, I think. He has been riding a lot. He loves this bike, and he loves the update.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm constantly crushing my times, and I'm beating all of my friends. And, you know, admittedly, like he's, you know, everyone's a different type of rider, and he values different stuff than maybe we do, but it's great because that gives us different perspective. He has used that little feature to lube his chain. He's like, oh, check this out. He's like, he'll like lift it up and just give it a little spin and just lube his chain that way, which just by having that auto shift.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of a fun feature.
And it's the same thing like riding in clips. You can kind of lift the back end, shift a few gears so you're not cramming gears as you're dropping in.
So before you went out on your big test ride, I showed you how I had programmed these controllers and asked if that was something that was intuitive and you would remember, or if you wanted to maybe change it to make more sense for your brain. And that, I think, is something for me that's super impressive about this screen, is like, you don't have to have the app. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to pull out your phone and connect. Everything that we did to turn on the smart shift, how we want these buttons to be to control, you basically have two options. You can either do a quick press, or you can do a press and hold, and that gives one button two features, or two functions, I should say. And so I thought that was really neat that you just can right there on the screen scroll through, honestly, more information than I can even remember to talk about, and customize so much about how the bike performs.
Yeah, I think it worked seamlessly for me. So we set up the right controller to adjust the real-time tune, with the circle button being more power and the double square being less power. And then also, if I were to press and hold that circle button, that's how I was starting and stopping the recording on my action cam, which is a very underrated feature as someone that we use action cameras a lot. And you drop in and you're like, oh no, like I gotta pull a hand off to like record. And so having that on the handlebar is pretty slick.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really neat, and just kind of a nice interface between all their products talking to each other.
I described it yesterday like a Garmin watch. You can choose your layouts on the screen from, you could have one speedometer to like, I think it's 8 different display options, all customizable. So you can see, you know, your max power, your current power output, remaining range, all that kind of stuff. And that's what I was using yesterday with that real-time tune testing, to watch the power levels to see how it was actually affecting it when I was getting my cadence up and putting power into the bike.
I haven't spent a ton of time really getting this thing into techie climbs just yet. Would you find yourself using that real-time tune, or do you kind of, I know we kind of talked about like, I get it, but I also don't know that I would use it a ton. Now that you've used it, what do you think?
I think it has a benefit for like, if you have your trail, so you say like for me and what I want, let's go from my perspective. I want eco to be like, oh no, I have to get home. And I want boost and turbo to be all the power. So that in between on the trail mode, which is kind of the mode that I would spend the majority of time in and just spinning, I think they've done a really good job with the tuning of the motor in that app to be able to ramp up power. So you're not using it as much, but in certain scenarios where you're like, oh wow, like I'm coming up and cresting a hill and I don't want that front wheel lift, you can jam down a few settings and get just, you know, 10% less power to prevent that wheel lift. And I think for people that want it tuned like I do, that's going to be helpful. Others may have trail mode a little bit softer, and maybe they just want to leave it in turbo and just power down. So it's an interesting option, and I think it has a very specific use case for someone tuning the bike to their riding zone.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I would agree. And I look forward to getting back on and doing some proper technical climbing, because I definitely have some ideas for the way that I want to tune it now moving into the future. So it'll be fun to get back out and play on it.
Speaking of boost and tuning, you can now opt for a 60-second power increase.
And you tried it, right?
Yeah, it's hilarious. Especially on like the road where you're climbing, like, gosh, it's just, It's what I envision e-bikes feeling like when I first got on one.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And I know you haven't ridden this bike since our SL shootout.
Correct.
And I remember you, like, well, the first thing you said when you came back, you were like, man, I forgot how fun this bike is.
Dude, it was so fun.
Yeah.
Like in the terrain we were riding in, you know, it wasn't super chunky. It was just really steep and loose, and like it was able to navigate these, like, I would say arm deep ruts.
Yeah.
really nicely. And then we got out onto some more jumpy, flowy stuff, and yeah, just like Sean was in front of me on another bike, and I would just pump and just get speed on him.
Yeah. No bike is perfect, right? And this thing, if you read or saw our video, you know, there were areas where it has its shortcomings, but overall, I think it is a very fun and capable bike. And depending on the type of rider you are, how heavy you are, and how hard you're pushing, like, it's a really fun bike in certain terrains. Well, folks, there you have it. There's essentially part 2 to the update video I made a few weeks ago. Now that Morgan has put in several hundred miles, Cole's gotten in some solid riding, and me not quite as much. So hopefully that brought a little bit of like real world information and testing to the features and sort of how-to element from our last video. If you have any questions specifically about the drive unit or the Amflow bike, let us know down below. We've got some more fun ideas, concepts, and projects in the works for this thing. Of course, we'd be happy to answer those questions. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you out on, well, you'll see him on the trails.
Yeah, I'll see me on the trails.
I'll see him somewhere with a cast on still. See ya.